All right, Carolina has joined us as well. Very nice. Hi to see you both, Jaspreet and Carolina. All right, I'm sure more people will come in, so I will get started. All right, everyone. So I wanted to welcome you to this live webinar, and we are covering today office small talk so that you can speak with confidence in office settings, in business settings, being able to network, and also when you're, at conferences, any type of professional scenario, you will be using small talk in, right? It's not just in personal social settings and interpersonal settings, but also in the interpersonal settings that are at work, at conferences, in interviews, because this is a very important skill to develop. It's very important for your executive skills and your social fluency, which is why we are covering it today. So I see that already some of you have been using the interactive chat. That is phenomenal. Say hello to each other. Some of you might know each other. Some of you might be meeting for the first time. So I want everyone to be able to use that because it makes it, it's part of this interactive webinar experience and a perk for joining live. Okay, excellent. So let's go ahead and share my screen and we will chat about this. Okay, so essentially, this is really important when you want to build rapport, when you want to create a sense of connection, foster a positive work environment, boost your career prospects, boost your career in general, right? So you might know me already from obviously the channels, Spotify, but also from the community, Explearning Communication Academy. I'm a very passionate executive communication and social fluency coach, and I empower the modern executive and ambitious international professionals who are really looking to become more confident communicators, be able to level up, be able to, speak in any kind of situation, social situation, business context, and really helping you harness that confidence, learn executive communication skills, learn social skills to boost your social fluency so that you can get the jobs you want, build the network you want, make the friends you want, build the life you want, whether that be abroad in an English-speaking country like the US or Canada, and also help you build meaningful connections so that you can have a greater impact both professionally and personally. So when you work with us here in Explearning Communication Academy, you will learn to build your confidence, to harness executive skills, to speak up, to make those meaningful connections that have life-changing effects, and also to amplify your impact. I also publish articles on LinkedIn, so you can follow me there if you are so keen and inclined to do so. And of course, I'm always here in the Academy where I'm very, very active. So if you want to get in touch with me, this is the place to do it. In the live forums, in the group chats, in the, under every single post, there is a forum so you can interact. All right, so we have more people joining. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I'm so happy that you're all here. So I want to ask you this, and I would love for you to respond in the interactive chat, like I said. Okay, everyone can hear me well, right? I would love for you to tell me. I tested everything, but let's just make sure before we continue. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Carolina. All right, so in one word, how would you describe your go-to small talk topic in a business setting? Okay, so meaning when you strike up a conversation with somebody and you're making small talk, do you talk about the weather? Do you talk about travel? Do you talk about your favorite hobbies? Do you talk about sports, like sports events or sports that you do? What do you talk about? Share that with us in the chat right now. Share that with us in the chat right now. I'm very curious to see what people say. Is it nothing? Do you not make small talk? Small talk is one of those things that both native speakers and non-native speakers kind of shudder at the thought at because it's so daunting for so many people, and it doesn't have to be. It really doesn't have to be. So I don't know. Okay, yeah. Well, that's a very honest answer. I appreciate that, William. What else? What else? Some people talk about the weather. A lot of people, actually. Winter. Okay, cool, Catalina. Yeah, it must be, you know, especially a timely topic now if you are somewhere where it is winter. Not the whole world right now has winter, but it's true. That could be a great topic. Like winter activities, maybe. Okay, what else? What else? What else? So weather, seasonal changes. So if it's raining, you might say, "Oh, can you believe it? We got rain finally," or "Oh, it's constantly raining," or "Oh, finally the sun is out." Things like that. Holidays, sure, sure, very good. Okay, these are great answers. There's no wrong answer, by the way. So don't be shy. Come and share your thoughts in the chat. All right. So great. So we're thinking sort of now along the lines of, okay, what can we kind of talk about? What are some things? So, okay. So William says he lives in Brazil and he generally talks about the forest. Very cool. I love that. Okay. Very nice. So the things around you, right? Shared locations, shared experiences can be a great way. Okay, so why is it so important in the workplace? Like you might already think, well, small talk is important in, you know, social settings, but believe it or not, it also has a very important role in the workplace and in professional and business settings. So it helps you build rapport. It helps you connect with colleagues on a personal level. So that really reinforces this collaboration, this sense of camaraderie, sense of trust, all important things if we want to level up our communication skills and also our careers ultimately. And then networking opportunities, right? This can be very instrumental in helping you land a job, in helping you open doors for career advancement, for collaboration. Sometimes it's as simple as reaching out to somebody. You start with some small talk, then you dive into a deeper discussion, you know, that goes beyond kind of the surface level. Now, I want to make something very clear. Not all small talk has to be superficial. Not all small talk has to be, you know, I don't want to say fake. That's not really what we're saying, but I think superficial is a better way of describing it, right? Kind of like on the surface, like the weather, the seasons, hobbies, right? You can go beyond that too, right? But the point is you start with something. You have a little bit of an icebreaker. You are able to kind of pinpoint a potential shared interest. You're exploring avenues of shared interests. You latch on to something that is interesting to both you and your interlocutor and the people that you're talking to. You latch on to that and then you go from there. And then you dig deeper. You go beyond the surface. So don't think of small talk as, oh, I don't need to learn that. That's just, you know, a superficial way of communicating. Not at all. Some of the greatest, most poignant and profound life-changing conversations that lead to life-changing opportunities stem from small talk. Okay. So this is why you do want to be able to build this small talk muscle, my friends. It also creates a positive atmosphere, right? You have pleasant interactions with your colleagues, with your managers, with your bosses, with your collaborators, and it's more enjoyable to work alongside them. Reduces stress, boosts productivity, increases overall morale, right? So these are all really great side effects, essentially, of mastering small talk in the workplace. So let's look at some great strategies that I want you to walk away with here today so that you can start using them straight away. And if it's the evening for you, then guess what? You can start tomorrow. If it's the morning for you, start right after this call. Yes, absolutely. William says networking opportunities for sure, for sure. I love that. I love that experience you shared as a translator and you met so many different people from different cultures. That's wonderful. Jaspreet says hobbies would be great to discuss as a way to break the ice. Absolutely. And the key with that, Jaspreet, is really trying to latch on to something of shared interest. So you kind of put out some feelers, you poke around, you figure out, okay, do they like sailing? Do they like tennis? Do they like mountain climbing? Do they like books? Do they like podcasts? Do they like Explearning Academy? Right? And then you run with it, right? You go with that and you dig deeper. Okay, excellent, excellent. So I love the first one here to start. I've mentioned this before. This is a great way to pick up on the cues around you and to pinpoint something in your immediate vicinity, okay? So pay attention to your environment. What's going on? Is there anything around you that you can pull from? Could it be the weather? Could it be the artwork in the room that you're both sitting in? You know, anything of shared interest. If there's a book that someone is reading, if it's on a coffee table, point to that. If you're at a conference, talk about the conference. Oh, what brings you here? Is this your first ed tech conference? Is this your first engineering meetup? Right? Just point that out, right? Very, very easy, very low stakes, very low risk of entering a conversation. Use open-ended questions, okay? The quality of your question will often determine the outcome of the conversation or the communication event. So you want to use nice open-ended questions because they open the door to conversation. What are you working on today? Right? Something as simple as that. Okay? Showing real, true, sincere, genuine interest, because people will notice when you're feigning interest, right? When you're pretending, and they'll notice when you have undivided full attention. So you really want to engage with them actively listening, asking thoughtful, open-ended questions, being curious in a kind way, not in a nosy way, right? We can tell the difference. We can absolutely tell the difference. And then, of course, think about your body language. Think about your tone. Are you smiling? Do you have a relaxed body posture? Are you sitting? Are you standing? Is it in a relaxed, open, positive way? What is your, what do your nonverbals say? Because so much of what we communicate is not through the words that we convey. That's only, a small percentage. It's so much more than that, right? Through our tone, through our body language, through our eye contact, through our inflection patterns. So you have to keep that in mind, right? This is going to be a great way for you to create a positive atmosphere for conversation, okay? Very important, my friends. All right. So how do you keep the conversation going? Last week, we talked about, mastering confident conversation, and we had a phenomenal question from one of our members, Rudy, who wanted to know, how do you continue a conversation? And I thought that was an excellent question. So I decided that we should spend a whole hour on it in one of our webinars. The replay you can find for paid members, along with the strategy guide and the challenge and the feedback forum and the everything else, the materials in daily practice. So this is related, right? In the sense that, how do you keep the conversation flowing and going? You don't want it to be forced, right? That everyone can feel that tension when it's forced. So you really just want to be comfortable practicing this and make it kind of just roll off the tip of your tongue, right? Okay. So work related. How's your project going? Easy. What's the biggest challenge you're facing? Like, tell me about that. Maybe you can help them problem solve. Personal interests. Have you seen any good movies lately? Right? You can talk about that kind of stuff, right? It's absolutely fine. It's small talk. It's genuine, right? Current events. Did you catch the news about the new home robot or the driverless cars? Have you heard of blah, 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 right? That's a great segue into something meaningful, and it can always tie into what you're doing work-wise, or not necessarily. Things at the office, right? If there's some team building activities or retreats, company-wide retreats, events, pizza parties, whatever it is, game nights. What did you think of the company picnic? Or are you planning on attending the upcoming training? Or are you going to, the holiday party? This is a really great way to just kind of, not only build rapport, but to be able to just kind of ask low stakes, low stress, low risk questions. Okay. So we have a question here. As a shy person like me, right? How can I approach somebody else and have small talk? Absolutely. These are super low stakes ways of entering a conversation, of, communicating in a confident way. So start practicing. The best thing you can do is take these strategies and start practicing. Try them on for size, see what works, try out different settings. And that's why, I give a challenge after every one of these classes so that you can actually go out into the world, practice them, and then come back into the community and share what you learned, what you discovered, and then communicate with me and other members to see, what worked, what might have worked better if you had done something else, or if you tried a different strategy or built on each other's strategies, right? So absolutely, practice makes progress. Very easy to talk about the weather. A lot of people like to just kind of point out something going on in the weather. Mention a recent weather event. Oh, we got so much rain. Or where were you in the blizzard? Or, share your plans for the weekend. Very, very easy way to start. You might, ask if you're going out for coffee with them or tea. Do you prefer tea or coffee? Are you a coffee person? Are you a tea person? What's your favorite tea? Oh, I'm a green tea person myself. Or I recently discovered my love for white tea. Or I really love black tea. My favorite is Lapsang Souchong, let's say. I personally am a tea person, so I have lots of favorite teas myself. Yeah, definitely. Travel, right? You can ask about travel plans or upcoming travel or recent travel. If there was a holiday, a long weekend, or maybe, they went somewhere for their birthday or for their spouse's birthday or for their child's birthday. You can talk about that. You can say, okay, where are you going for your next vacation, right? These are nice kind of ways of kind of tapping into our shared humanity, our shared human experience. We're not all, just like work robots, right? We have a life outside of work. So what's great about work small talk is that you can also, there's a place for this human connection. So absolutely bring these things up for sure. And then sports, right? You can talk about like a recent game that you attended. Maybe you went to a tennis match or a tennis tournament. You went to the US Open or Wimbledon or, Roland Garros or something, right? Did you see the game last night? What's your favorite team? Things like that. Okay. Now, things to avoid, okay? Just steer clear of controversial subjects because remember, this is small talk in business settings, small talk at work. So we want to be extra cautious, right? You might feel like you can talk about sensitive topics with your best friend, absolutely, with your family, for sure. Maybe even taboo topics with people that you know really well. But at work, you want to keep things professional, right? You don't want to bring heightened emotions in there. You don't want to bring in polarizing worldviews in there. You want to keep it calm, right? Keep it cool. Keep it professional. Okay. So 3 main things to avoid. The first being politics. Okay. That can be a very polarizing thing for people. So it's something you certainly can talk about, but not really. I wouldn't recommend doing this in the office or with people, at work, friends, managers, acquaintances, particularly in the professional space. It's just better to steer clear of this. There's so many other things you can talk about. You can talk about the latest tech developments, latest industry trends. Sure, why not? Politics, no need to get into, right? It can be highly divisive, lead to disagreements. Like I said, they're, polarizing, can be very polarizing. Religion is also one, right? That's very personal for a lot of people. So no need to talk about this. No need to talk about it. Also sensitive and can be inappropriate for the workplace. And then personal problems, also highly inappropriate for the workplace. You don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. You're not there to, treat people as your psychiatrist or your therapist. Again, with best friends and kindred spirits and intimate acquaintances and family, these are not really controversial subjects, but as soon as you change the context from kind of a social, intimate environment to a work environment, a business environment, you really do want to avoid sensitive and controversial subjects. You will just do so much better if you did. Okay, now I get questions a lot, believe it or not, about, avoiding silences or lulls in conversation or gaps. People are really afraid of silence. They don't know what to do with silence. A little bit of silence is okay, first of all, let me say that, because it gives us opportunity to process information. It gives other people opportunity to process information. It gives you a moment to think. It gives you thinking time, which allows you to organize your thoughts much better, much more cohesively and coherently, so you can put your best foot forward. Now, if there are long bouts of silence or lulls in the conversation, then here's what you can do. Acknowledge the silence, right? Just say, let me think about that. That's a really good question. Let me think about that. Okay. Shift the focus. You can do a topic shift. So, speaking of the rainforest, have you seen the new documentary on blah, 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 the Borneo rainforest? Okay. Ask a question. And if it's open-ended, that's going to be so much better. So you can re-engage the conversation if you want to carry on, or you can ask an open-ended question while also doing a little bit of a topic shift. What are your thoughts on blah, 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 blah? Okay. Offer a compliment, a genuine compliment. I really like your new office plant. It really brightens up the space. Or that's a really cool, new set of speakers. How's the sound quality? Okay. About this, I would avoid offering compliments about appearance. Okay, again, it's professional. So, compliment them maybe on something they did at work, or like their presentation, or some new gadget they're using. Ask them, I've been meaning to get a new microphone like that. Do you find your Zoom calls are better with that kind of sound quality? But avoid things about their appearance, what they're wearing, things like that, because again, that can make people uncomfortable. So just something to keep in mind. All right, very important. We're always getting constant feedback as we communicate, which is another reason why we should pay attention and listen actively, my friends. So you learn a lot by paying attention in conversation, as opposed to just bulldozing through what you're saying, not letting anyone speak, not paying attention to social cues. We don't want to do that. We want to pay attention so we can gauge interest and figure out if we are building rapport, if we're hitting, the right topics, if they're interested, if we're sharing if we have some overlapping interests and whatnot. So first thing you can pay attention to is body language, okay? Posture, facial expressions, eye contact or lack thereof. With this, you also want to keep in mind cultural context, because not every culture treats eye contact the same way. So, you want to be doing all the things that you know to be true and right with body language. And I have a whole course about body language, nonverbal communication. I highly recommend you check it out. I believe it's in our social fluency boot camp section in our paid community plan. So definitely check that out. It's a really good one. Very important. Okay. And a lot of how we communicate is through the paralinguistics, including tone of voice, body language, rhythm, pacing, these kinds of things. So certainly something to be mindful of and cognizant about. Verbal cues. Okay. Tone of voice, response time. How long does it take them to respond? Are they more pensive? Are they thinking? Are they rushing through? Are they blurting out something without thinking? What's the response time like? How's their engagement with your questions? Are they doing something else while you're chatting? Are they looking at their watch? Are they looking at their notifications? Are they scrolling on Instagram? Are they looking out the window? Are they tapping their toes? Like, what are they doing? How engaged are they? And then your overall impression. What's the vibe? right? Are they receptive to what you're saying? Are they aloof and disinterested? Maybe they're maybe they're typically very engaged and receptive, but on, a random day of the week, you notice that they're really kind of distracted. Depending on how well you know this person, this colleague, you might say, so Josh, you seem a little distracted lately. Is everything okay? Or maybe you have a lot on your plate right now. We can definitely talk later. Or is there anything I can help support you with? How's the presentation prep going? Right? Things like that. You want to be attuned also to their typical communication style, because if you take a highly receptive person and all of a sudden they have a day where they're not receptive and they're kind of, out of it, and they seem distracted and not focused, then you might point that out. If it's the opposite, where there's generally a person that you interact with that's very aloof, very distracted, very unfocused, and then all of a sudden you start talking about something where they're super engaged and super receptive, run with that too, right? Maybe you're talking about skiing and they love skiing. Okay, Jaspreet has a great question. Can you distinguish between verbal and nonverbal cues? Absolutely. So the verbal cues are the spoken utterances. So for example, acknowledgement, like, oh yeah, for sure, I get it. Or, I feel the same way. Or, not quite, right? Discourse markers, right? These things, even fillers, and then the nonverbal cues are things like nodding, eye contact, crossing your arms, tone of voice, things like that. So we can separate them into two distinct categories, verbal and nonverbal cues. So body language falls under the category of nonverbal cues. Verbal cues are the spoken utterances where you use your words, your voice. Okay? Very good. So, nice questions. You're welcome, Jaspreet. Yeah, absolutely. Throw your questions in the chat. Happy to answer. Okay, so now we talked a little bit about the importance of kind of finding topics that you can ultimately run with, right? They have potential to blossom into a beautiful flower or gorgeous plant. You take the seeds, you plant them in fertile soil, give them sunshine and water, and they grow. I want you to kind of put that image in the back of your mind, right? What kinds of small talk seeds am I planting that will grow into gorgeous flowers, plants, and trees? Because again, the goal is to transition to, from the small talk to a more substantive discussion, deeper discussion, more thorough conversation. Because again, I don't want you to have this idea that small talk needs to be superficial. It can be, just like any conversation can be, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, so let's plant the seeds for fertile blossoming. So find common ground. You should be on high alert, especially when you're first getting to know someone or want to get to know someone. What do you have in common? Okay, so cast your net wide. Talk about all different things and see what kinds of fish you catch. Okay, if you cast a narrow net, then you're not going to get really beyond the surface. If you cast a wide net, you talk about food, you talk about travel, you talk about hobbies, you talk about work, you talk about podcasts, you talk about AI, you talk about tech, you talk about education. So much more to find as overlaps. Okay, find your shared interests. Express interest in what they're doing, right? Genuinely have questions and show curiosity. What are some of the things that make them tick? What do they love professionally to do? Are they in a role right now where they see themselves, still 5 years from now? Do they hope to grow? What do they hope to do? What are their aspirations? And when they share something, you can share something about your aspirations. Okay. And then transitioning naturally. So, for example, you don't want to say, okay, now that we've done our small talk, let's talk about something a little bit more substantive, right? That would be super awkward. It's the opposite of having social fluency. No, you want to gradually shift into something maybe more professional or building on existing connections. So you start with their recent camping trip, and then you talk about, um, feeling so refreshed and coming into the office for that great presentation. Or, you bumped into a colleague on your way to your ski vacation and you had a great conversation about, new industry developments. It really, it can go any way you feel like it should go, it can go. That's the beauty of conversation. And then we also have to figure out, how do we gracefully exit a conversation? We don't want to end it abruptly. That can be really jarring. People can feel confused. They might take it personally, like, oh, was it something I said? Like, why did they leave the conversation this abruptly? No, oftentimes it just has to do with they not knowing how to masterfully exit a conversation. So here's how we do it, my friends. Signal your departure. Just give a subtle clue, right? And cue that you're winding down. It might be like, oh, would you look at the time? Or you look at the clock in the room, or you look out the window, or you point your feet in the direction of the door, right? Your feet were pointing towards them, showing engagement. And now your feet are pointing towards the door, or the door, wherever the door is, okay? Shows you're winding down. Or maybe you pull out your phone. Or maybe somebody calls you and it's the perfect opportune moment. Like, oh, I really have to take this. Let's catch up later. Express gratitude. Thank them for their time. Thank them for their fruitful conversation that you had. Thank them for helping you. Thank them for sharing a lovely cup of tea. End on a positive note. Okay, you want to keep, if you had a wonderful conversation and then you end on a negative note or a complaint, guess what? They're not going to remember the wonderful, positive, uplifting conversation you had. They're going to remember that complaint or that negative, talk, or maybe that gossip. I really hope there's no gossip, right? So make sure you end on a positive note. Leave them with, it's like, when you finish a meal, you don't want to end with like the bitter taste in your mouth. You want to end with something savory or sweet or just delicious, or that umami flavor, right? You know what I'm talking about? Umami. Not like a bitter thing. So, and then lastly, a future mention. This is a advanced tactic, mind you, where you make a future mention. You say, okay, so why don't we meet up again? I loved chatting. Or how about we take this call to, maybe you meet them on Zoom and you say, why don't we meet up, next week and go to that coffee shop that we've been meaning to try? Or why don't we make a pizza lunch of it? Or why don't we include our spouses and have a barbecue on the weekend? Okay, great ways. These are 4 terrific ways of mastering graceful exits. It's another question I get asked a lot. How do I exit a conversation? Here are 4 ways to do it. And you don't have to do all 4 of these. You can choose one. You can do all 4 if you want. It would be overkill, so no need. 1 or 2 is fine. 1 is fine. People will pick up on it. Again, these are all indicative. If you can do these things, you show your social fluency. If you can pick up on these things, you show your social fluency. Pretty cool. Pretty darn cool. So you take all this wonderful information, all these terrific, amazing, advanced strategies. Now you graduate to using them out in the real, live, beautiful world. I make it super easy for you to practice these. So I have a little challenge for you every week. This is your challenge for this week. Today, tomorrow, sometime soon, I want you to strike up some small talk with somebody at work. Could be in a meeting, Could be in the elevator, could be at your, neighborhood coffee shop, casual setting. Here is your mission. So 1, use an open-ended question so that you can spark the conversation. Like, what's something that you're having fun working on recently? Have them talk about it. Then you want to practice actively listening. Yes, the only way to successfully communicate is if you're actively listening. You're really, truly paying attention. You're nodding. You're doing a triple nod. You're paying attention. You're giving some discourse markers, right? The verbal and nonverbal cues. You're picking up on their verbal and nonverbal cues. You're asking follow-up, open-ended questions. You're making eye contact. You have a positive air about you. These things. And then 3rd step here, transition. Okay. Transition to more meaningful or work-related conversation and topics if it feels natural. Okay, so you go from the small talk to the deeper, bigger talk, right? The more substantive talk, because that way you go beyond surface level. And that's where the real magic happens, right? You can think of small talk as putting out the feelers, trying to figure out, who this person is, what they like, professionally, personally, socially, right? Getting to know them, building rapport so that you can build an actual working relationship with them, right? You know that if they love the New York Knicks and you have an extra ticket to go see the New York Knicks play in Madison Square Garden, you'll know to invite them. Or they know that you love hiking, so they'll invite you on, the next time they go hiking, right? So these are they have very real consequences, right? You really do want to get to know people and take the small talk to bigger talk. And then lastly, I want you to share what you try out, share your experience, share your mission in the comments section in our daily practice forum. Share things like what went well. What did you find challenging? Did you notice anything that surprised you? Were there any results where you didn't expect certain things? Were you delighted in some way? Okay, I will share my feedback. The community will chime in and share their feedback, right? Because we all learn from each other, not just the communication expert, right? But each other. And that's the power also of community. Okay, so let's make it your secret sauce. Okay, let's use the small talk to lead to more meaningful discussion, get to know people better, because that's the name of the game, right? Communication to connection. That's what we want at work, in life. And then lastly, I will say, so many of you have been enjoying this amazing workbook. 12 pages, right? It's designed for people who really are keen on leveling up. And you can download it, you can print it out, you can just open it up in a PDF file or on your computer and type your answers in. I give you clear, actionable exercises, helping you set powerful intentions for your communication, giving you tools to help develop your intrapersonal communication and your self-awareness, helping you build deeper connections and forging real connection, and then working on executive communication as well, because we do it all here in Explearning Communication Academy, because all types of communication are important. So it's 12 pages. You can grab your copy, and it's live in the community, so you can access that very easily when you're on our paid plan. All right, so let's make social fluency your superpower, my friends. Now is the time. Time is of the essence, and I'm so happy that you're all here. You're engaged. This was a lovely conversation. So many great questions in the live chat. And let's continue the conversation in the daily practice forum that you can access as a paid member. So I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you valuing your time so much to spend it on professional development and our high quality courses and lessons. So pat yourself on the back, job well done, and I will see you very soon. All right, my friends, take care and have a wonderful rest of your day and evening. All right, bye for now, everyone. Happy explearning.